forget to push my button sometimes. So let's try again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Board of Adjustments for November 28th, 2018. Before we get going here, we'll introduce you to who we have with us tonight. On my left, we have Board Member John Pazauskas. We have Board Member Albert Adair. We have Kevin Cullens. I am Chairman David Lyon. To my right is Vice Chair James Frazee. Also, we have Board Member Richard Watkins and Board Member Whitney Baker. Oh, what did I say? Watkins. My apologies. Good catch. Also, we have with us from City Staff Steve Abramson, Karen Stovall. We have Brittany Nelson. Sorry, still working on that. Also in our audience, we have Ryan Levesque. We have Blake Shimke. And have I gotten everyone from staff? Okay. So tonight we have 3 items, the first of which we're going to need to deal with our study session, or with our meeting minutes from our previous meeting, May 23rd. We have reviewed these meeting minutes and made a couple of very minor tweaks and are prepared to vote to accept those. May I hear a motion regarding the acceptance of those minutes, please? Board Member Baker.
I motion that we accept the meeting minutes.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I second.
All right, motion to approve the meeting minutes as revised by Board Member Baker and seconded by Vice Chair Frazee. All those in favor, please indicate by a raise of hands. And opposed, if any. And we have 2 abstaining, I believe. Yes? Those who wish to abstain, by show of hands, please. Okay, so that's 1. I missed your vote.
42.
I didn't see your hand for some reason. I have a blind spot, apparently. All right, so the motion passes 6-0 with Board Member Adair abstaining. We'll move on to our 2 cases for tonight. We have decided that we will alter the order and first address PL 180173. As we understand, there may be a change to how we hear things. If you would give us just a moment, Ms. Stovall, can you give us a synopsis?
Yes, so late last week, representative of the appellant contacted staff requesting a continuance to the January 23rd, 2019 hearing. And so the board will need to decide tonight whether or not to grant that continuance request.
Okay, any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will invite our applicant's representative to come to the dais and tell us what you wish to about your appeal.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Lyon, distinguished board members, and members of staff. My name is Lawrence Felder. I'm an attorney. I represent the interests of the applicant Park Dispensary in this matter, PL or application 180173. And Ms. Stovall is correct. Our office and the office of Larry Lazarus last week requested in writing a continuance of tonight's hearing on grounds that the principal of the applicant, Mr. John Vatistas, had to suddenly and without warning undergo an emergency surgical procedure to a vital organ, I believe on November 21st. He's recovering. I was able to communicate with him by email, but he was not able, still able to attend tonight's meeting. You may remember Mr. Vatistas from an earlier hearing. He's vital, indispensable to our presentation. This case is very important to him, and we believe that he'll be sufficiently recovered to participate meaningfully and productively if this matter were continued to the requested date. Another reason besides his inability to be here tonight that we're requesting the continuance is he was unable to formally engage the law office of Larry Lazarus, who is one of the submitting parties for the continuance. You may know Mr. Lazarus's office either by experience or reputation, but he's one of the preeminent zoning attorneys in the state. And Mr. Batistas believes that Mr. Lazarus' involvement in his presentation would give him the best possible chance. And because he was unable to formally engage him, Mr. Lazarus's office could not formally appear here tonight. One of his colleagues is here, Heather Dukes, in the chamber. We were able to contact the 3 parties who had filed written oppositions to the appeal. Emerald, whose counsel, Jeff Gross, is here tonight, a colleague of mine. L&R Peters Investments, and Mr. Robert Cox of Arizona State University, each one of whom provided to us and/or to Ms. Stovall their notice of non-opposition to the requested continuance. We knew of no other parties to notify or to request them to weigh in other than those 3 who had submitted written opposition. So in the circumstances, we're requesting that the matter be continued to that date, again, due to this emergency that none of us could foresee. And of course, the importance to the applicant of being here and participating and being able to answer your questions and to respond and to provide a full record so that you can make the best and most informed decision. Thank you.
Okay.
If there are any questions for me.
Any questions for our applicant's representative?
What date was requested for the extension to the next meeting, or was there a specific date?
I'm not aware of a meeting in December. The letters that were submitted requested January 23rd of 2019.
Okay, other questions? Seeing none, we will thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now, folks, we've heard that they're asking for a continuance, and I do have 2 people here who said they wish to speak. I have Dan Schweiker. Do you still wish to speak, or I can read this remark into the record if you like?
We just support the continuance.
Okay. So Mr. Schweiker says they support the continuance. And I also have Michael Calisi, I think it says. Do we have a Michael Calisi here? Do you wish to speak still? All right, fair enough. So I will close the public hearing portion. Well, let's discuss. I would say, well, before I state my opinion, let me just open up to you, board. How do you feel about continuing this case? If you would,
Yes, sorry.
Board Member Baker.
I think it's only reasonable to grant the continuance, and you can't foresee a medical emergency.
Okay, other comments?
I agree.
Board Member Pizakis, okay, and Board Member Watson, okay. I will weigh in and say that I feel the same. I see no reason not to continue this case, and I do certainly wish our dear applicant all the best in health and recovery. All right. If there are no other comments or discussion?
No, I was ready to make a motion.
All right, Board Member Baker.
I motion that we grant the continuance to our January meeting.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Board Member Watson seconds. All those in favor by show of hands, please. The motion passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, so we will move forward to our other case, which is, thank you, which is the Peter Hantz case. We'll ask Ms. Stovall to get us up to speed on that, and then we'll, after that, ask our applicant to come.
All right. Good evening. My name is Karen Stovall, Senior Planner. Steve, could you put the... All right. Next. Wait. No, this is it. All right. This variance request is for the property located at 1840 East University Drive. The property is zoned GID, and the site contains a single-story industrial building that's approximately 31,000 square feet in size. The applicant proposes to operate a medical marijuana cultivation facility in the north half of the building. Primary access to the property is from a drive that extends from University Drive on the south, but the site can also be accessed off of McClintock to the west and Hacienda Drive to the east. The applicant is requesting the reduction of 2 cultivation facility separation requirements. The first is to reduce the separation between the facility and a religious worship facility from 1,320 feet to 0 feet. This map shows the property with the existing church on it, addressed as 637 South McClintock Drive, which is directly to the west of the subject site. The church is operating in a suite of a commercial property. The second is to reduce the separation between the facility and a residential zoning district from 500 feet to 281 feet. The closest residentially zoned property is also shown on this map, and it is to the south, and it is zoned R2 across University. You can see by the aerial photo and the zoning map that the R2 zone property is one of many residentially zoned properties on the south side of University that are within the 500-foot separation requirement. So that 281 feet is the closest residentially zoned property to the site. To provide some background briefly, on June 25th, 2018, the property owner filed a use acceptance request for the proposed land use, and after review of that request, the Planning Division denied the application. It was determined that the site did not meet the separation requirements from a worship facility or residential zoning district. The applicant is now requesting the 2 variances before you tonight to reduce the separation requirements and allow the cultivation facility. The applicant was required to hold a neighborhood meeting and did so in October of this year. Approximately 7 individuals attended and expressed concerns regarding odor, security, property values, and a concern that granting of a variance may set precedents for other medical marijuana businesses in the immediate vicinity. Staff received 1 letter of inquiry and 2 letters of opposition to the request, and those were included as attachments in your staff report. I would like to briefly go over the approval criteria for a variance that will apply to this case. The first criteria is that there are special circumstances applicable to the property, including its size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings. The applicant claimed special circumstances related to the rear or north half of the building, which was designed with separate warehouse, office space, and parking area. The applicant also claims that he has experienced financial challenges due to downsizing of the business and difficulty leasing the rear half due to a lack of visibility from a public street. The site design and business financials are not special circumstances that can be accounted for in this variance application. While the property does not have frontage on a public street, there are other commercial and industrial properties in Tempe that do not have street frontage and that are also accessed by a private street or cross-access easement like this one is. The second criteria is that the strict application of the code would deprive the property of privileges enjoyed by other properties of the same classification and in the same zoning district. Regardless of the site's visibility from a public street, all properties within 1,320 feet of a religious worship facility and within 500 feet of a residential zoning district would be denied zoning clearance for a cultivation facility. The special circumstances claimed by the applicant do not deny this property of privileges enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district. The third criteria is that the requested adjustment shall not constitute granting of special privileges. As previously stated, other properties in the same zoning district that do not comply with with the same separation requirements would also be denied zoning clearance for the same use. If approved, this variance would grant special privileges inconsistent with limitations placed upon other properties in the vicinity. Lastly, the variance may not be granted if the special circumstances are self-imposed and staff does not believe there are special circumstances applicable to the site. Based on the information submitted by the applicant and review of the variance criteria, staff is recommending denial of both of the variances. However, if you approve them, there are 2 stipulations listed in the staff report that we are recommending be attached to the approval. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, questions for staff?
Real quick, I noticed when I was reading through here that this was in the paragraph called the reason for denial, and something to do with the applicant doesn't have a valid license with the Arizona Department of Health Services for a medical marijuana business. Is that a requirement? What does that mean?
So whether a business intends to operate a dispensary or cultivation facility, they need to obtain a license through the State Department of Health Services. At this time, the applicant, which is also the property owner, does not have such a license. So if this variance were approved, the next step would be to obtain a license through the state and then get through the state for cultivation, and then also become associated with the dispensary, which they're also not doing because they don't have a license to cultivate in the first place. So,
Vice Chair Frazee.
So just to follow up on what you just said, so the cultivation facility is different from a dispensary. You can't operate both at the same location, and a cultivation facility has to be specifically tied to a specific dispensary?
Chairman and board member, cultivation facility and dispensary, there are separate licenses for that. As far as operating in the same location, as long as the separation requirements and other zoning requirements for those uses are both met, they can be operated on the same property. What was your last question? I'm sorry.
Well, and then a cultivation facility, well, I guess what I thought I understood you saying previously, has to be tied to a dispensary?
It does, yes. Yes, and in order to operate, the state needs to know where the product cultivated is going to go, where it's going to be sold.
Yes, Board Member Collins.
A quick question on the, part of the reason for denial, it's noted in here that Tempe currently has 5 approved dispensaries and at least 2 cultivation facilities. Is there a code or a restriction on the number of cultivation facilities that can be approved in Tempe?
There is not a restriction. Our code used to have limits on the number of them, but at this point, as long as a property, again, complies with all the separation requirements and all the other limitations in the code, they can open. So there's no set number.
Thank you.
All right, good question. Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Ms. Stovall. All right, so now we'll invite our applicant to come tell us about your application. I guess it would be our appellant and appeal. Sorry, get my terms right.
Good evening. My name is Gerald Johnson, and I'm the owner of the building at 1840 East University and Peter Hahn's company. And we're sitting here trying to figure out the whole process, to be honest with you. And we've come a long ways here with this process. Now we're at the point where we're looking at what issues might be for us to continue going forward. One is being too close to a church. To be quite honest with you, I didn't know the church was where it was. It's a small church, but we have since contacted the owner of the building there, and they have given us the okay to go ahead and put in no objections to us doing this process. The other is a residential area, which is across the street, across University, and quite a ways away from us, but within the restrictions, I do believe. So we're asking that you are able to put that, give us the variance just to move forward. You just asked a question about the cultivation aspect of it. We're only interested in cultivating. We're a manufacturing company right now. We manufacture hair products. And we feel that the hair product business has gone down a bit. So we're looking to expand and other revenue sources. We think this is a legitimate business, legal. We're not anything other than that. We want to grow it and sell it to dispensaries. You're correct, we have to get involved with a dispensary, and we have the possibilities of doing that pretty well. In going through this process, we had some things come up from one of the buildings next door to us. So we had a meeting, and there were some questions about different things, the odor being one of them. That seemed to be a big problem. And security, of course, is the other. We fully intend to be completely secure in this area with cameras, lights, 24-hour guard, and whatever the police department in Tempe really requires of us to be able to operate safely and secure. The other is the odor. And in a letter they sent, they said I was stunned at the odor. They're correct, I was stunned. I'm not a common user of medical marijuana. But I wasn't fixing to burn anything. At any rate, my association with odor would have been to burn it. So that's not what we're there to do. And so we asked a gentleman in our office that's with Sea of Green. I have Adam up here. And if I could, I'd like to bring him up here to explain how well the odor can be taken care of, if that's at all possible. Adam? It's Adam Carr from Sea of Green.
Hi, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Sea of Green Hydroponics. We currently service about 65 medical cultivations in 8 different states. We also do consulting for them when we build out facilities for people. Really, the odor is nothing more than particulate in the air. So the sciences that we use to remove that odor are no different than what would be in a casino or an airport through carbon filters and ozone generators. So if you oversize the CFM to remove the particulate, then there is no odor outside of the building. So out of all the cultivations I have, now there is some out in, Chino Valley and Prescott and those type of places where they really don't have to control odor. But given that there's 2 legal ones in this same neighborhood that I have helped build out, you cannot smell anything going down those roads. And I would bet that no one could pick out what those buildings were if they didn't have to register with the state.
And the security?
And security, on the cultivation side, not the dispensary side, in the 6 years that I've done this, I have never heard of one security problem at a cultivation, not from an outside to an inside. Someone maybe inside might do something, but nothing where someone has broken in or stolen something or anything like that.
All right, how about we give them a moment longer? And are other things you wish to say before we start asking questions?
I'm sorry?
Is there anything else you want to say?
I did, yes, if I could.
Please.
The next topic, of course, was with the odor and doing it. And then in addition to that, it's in the back of our building, which is a 8-inch block wall between us and anything else. And it's totally contained. I have a video of how we're going to set this business up, if you'd like to see it. It's a quick 4-minute video. Can we play that?
I would suggest that you'd be better spending your time addressing the criteria that we have to look at directly. I don't know that the nature of the business is going to affect our decision very much.
The nature of the business? I'm sorry. I'm a little hard of hearing. I'm sorry.
No problem. I think we should skip the video, if that's all right.
What it does is just explain the high-tech availability of it. the product is going to be contained inside containers, and then, so that it's not even out in the open inside the building. And I think that's an important factor as far as security goes too. As far as anything else, I really don't have a whole lot more to tell you. I can't change the residential area. I don't think we're going to be a problem for them at all. The church, the people that own the church had no problem with us. We went around to try to be a good neighbor because of what Intech had come up with, and we had 31 businesses surrounding our business that had no objection to us participating in this venture. And I can show you that map, and my son can show you. In fact, it's up there right now, I believe. All those dots are places where we went and got signatures from some, not from workers inside the building, names, addresses of owners of the business. We've been there 21 years. I've been here in Tempe for 21 years. I'd like to stay another 21. I don't think I'm going to make 21. Maybe I will, but my son will. And my son is retired Army, and these young ladies all want a job. So we're looking to hopefully overlook certainly the church, I don't think is a problem at all. And the residential has a 4-lane highway that pretty much blocks everything off. It's called University. And we're tucked in around behind. That does present a problem for us in terms of leasing out. We did have, and I believe in your packet you see a letter from a realtor. We did have some people come to look at leasing out the back half of that building. It's a 35,000 square foot building. And guess what they wanted to do? They wanted to put a cultivation center in. So I said, well, wait a minute. I don't need them controlling what goes on in my building if we're going to do this. I have the capabilities of doing this, along with Sea of Green as a consulting to do it correctly and have a legitimately good business being a positive for the city of Tempe, also adding the tax roll to everything. So we're not here to put some sloppy business in. That's not what we do. We want to do a really good business and have things done correctly. And this business is growing. It's not getting smaller. It's getting bigger. As a matter of fact, 40 tons, I believe, of 43 tons of medical marijuana were sold in Arizona in 2017, a 50% increase over 16. So I think it's a business that's legitimate now. I would never want to do anything that's not legitimate. And I think it's a going business, a coming business. And if it's done correctly, there shouldn't be any objections to it. We had little or no objections when my son personally went around and talked to each one of those businesses. They're all right here individually. I think you have copies of those too.
We do.
And I think that the consideration for a variance would be warranted and greatly appreciated.
All right.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you. If you would stay there just for a second in case we have any questions.
I think I will.
All right. Questions for our appellant. Board Member Cullens, please.
I do have one question. I think it was I apologize for your name, the gentleman with the Sea of Green.
Adam Green.
Adam, you
Adam
mentioned that there are 2 cultivation facilities nearby.
There are.
I'm assuming those are the 2 on the list that are already approved and operating.
Correct.
Which means they met all the criteria
Correct.
to build there and operate there.
Absolutely.
That would be my primary question, because I'm sure Chairman Lyons will go over, but we have a criteria that we have to look at for specific items. And does it meet the criteria of those 4 items for us to approve the appeal? And again, I just would reiterate that there are 2 operating in the area. They were able to meet all the code requirements and not have an issue. Thank you.
All right. Board Member Adair.
Yes, just a moment. Would you, when you're using the word cultivation,
Yes, sir.
brings my mind to agriculture.
Yes.
It is.
And I remember when that land was all agricultural, including cows and the remainder of things that they had. Well, the city did get rid of those without any preparation, through the years. So it's an agricultural business, legitimately legal. While I may or may not approve of the substance that you're growing, if I had a chance to pick it, I would rather pick that than cotton, okay? So it's an agricultural product, and I think it should be framed in that manner. So is that the way you see it, as an agricultural product?
Absolutely, I do, sir. It's a new technology with all hydroponics to grow it. My dad just passed away recently and had a 320-acre down in Eloy, and they grew cotton, soybeans. And I can tell you that this is more profitable than that was. And that's a very difficult process. But yes, sir, it's an agricultural product as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Follow up.
Do you have more?
I'm just going to add to that, just as a dumb question, there will be expense perhaps to the city for, if we had to call the police and things of that nature, backup force. You will be paying taxes to our city and revenue will come into
yes.
this. So this will be a profitable revenue generating item for our city, which will build parks and fix the potholes in front of my house. Okay, that's all my questions.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Board Member Pazauskas.
Yes, I had a question. Again, reading in the reason for the denial that was issued, I understand, I mean, this is a new business for you. It sounds like you're going into a business venture and understanding, that there's zoning requirements and there's all kinds of different requirements. And understanding that your property doesn't necessarily meet those. There was a statement here that within half a mile of your building, there are properties that do meet those requirements. If you were going into this new business venture, why wouldn't you look at that as an option to relocate this in an area that you wouldn't have to get a variance on there?
Well, sir, I'm not gonna take it off the table, but the business that we're currently putting into this building, we own this building, and I have to pay for this building, and I'd prefer to do that and have it right within the grasp of everything that we've done over the last 20 years in terms of if we're going to put something in, let's put something in, I own it and can control it. I wasn't crazy about leasing out the back, which is about 12,000 square feet. So when they came back and said, well, we don't want to go before the city of Tempe and try to get involved with this, I said, okay. But I did think about the idea of how I could develop this and the fact that it's legal and it's a going entity. I believe Oregon, Washington, California, Nevada, Colorado, Arizona now, Texas, and Massachusetts is the latest one I just heard. I saw that going across the ticker tape last night. I think they, in the first 6 hours, they did about $2.5 million. Now, I don't know what that equates to in taxes, but I think the state's pretty happy with that, or the state or the city. So I wanted to keep it control of it. I kind of am in that mode where at my age, I don't like to be off watching something go where I can't be right on it. And this is our all-encompassing in our business. So that's why we chose to go ahead and try to move in this direction. I chose to come before the board because I've always worked with the city and everything that we've done, and we've never had the problem. So if I got a problem, I got a problem, but I've never had a real problem explaining and telling people that what we're going to do. And like I said, we're a long-time resident here in terms of business resident, and that's where we're at. Any other questions?
Vice Chair Frazee.
Thank you, definitely for your time. So just a couple questions. In regards to the church, obviously you had made the comment at the beginning that you didn't know that the church was there. but when you went to visit, you're saying you have approval from the property owner and the church, or is the church is not the owner of that building, though, right? They're a tenant in the building?
No, there are three other businesses, Mike, if you would come up here and talk about who you actually talked to, right here. This is my son, Michael Johnson, retired Army.
Yes, thank you.
I'm proud of him. What can I
All
tell
right,
you?
thank you for your service.
Thank you. The building in question where the church is actually located at, there is at least two other businesses within that same strip. They operate the very, very front one closest to McClintock. We have gone over there and spoken with all the business owners or tenants of that building, along with the person that actually owns that church as well. And each one of them had voiced no objections to doing it. In fact, each one of them issued us a, we hope that it goes through and does well for us. So,
Including the dance studio, the restaurant.
yeah, there's restaurants.
And all the buildings surrounding that area, every building you have an X on up there, we went to all of those and attempted, and even ones over on 6th Street, all those with an X on them. We went in there, each one of them, did we not?
Correct.
We wound up with 31 different businesses surrounding our business, including the business directly to the east of us, right next to us. They were also okay with everything. Most of them were pretty ecstatic about it. I had two want to invest, so I'm not in need of investment, but they did leave me their card and want to do that. I said, let me take this one step at a time. So we will do that. Did you not? Did that not the truth?
Yeah, thank you. The second question then, I guess, just for clarification for your side as well. If this were to be approved tonight, you still want to have a cultivation company. You would have to get a tenant. That tenant would then have to come back through the same process, knowing that tenant would still meet the requirement. They would still not meet the requirements of the setbacks and the distances.
Well, we would be the person actually doing the grow. We would have somebody actually working for us in the back of our warehouse area where we would have this thing set up and going through that same process.
And operating under a dispensary license.
Correct, and operating under a dispensary license. We have not approached a dispensary until we knew that the variance was even going to go. It didn't make sense to go out and try to get a dispensary online if, we promise them, hey, yeah, we're going to do it for you, and then they think that that's going to happen, and then when someone else comes along, they won't give them that ability to do it because they think we're going to. So we wanted to wait until we were able to get the variance approved before we could do that.
And Steve, you had a clear comment?
Mr. Abramson.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman Lyon, members of the board. I just want to call out that there are not 31 signatures on this particular map, not 31 businesses, and 2 of them indicated that they did not sign. So just for the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, they didn't sign the sheet, but they voiced that they had no problem.
They voiced opinion on it.
Yes.
With regard to the dispensary, we don't have plans to put a dispensary in this location. Or I don't have the ability at this point. There's only a limited amount of licenses. Is that not right, Adam? Correct. And I don't see me having people drive down the side of my building and into the back into the dispensary. That's not something I have plans to do. If I were to do that, I would do it off-site someplace else. It wouldn't be. But we do have some key people that would be interested in pairing up
And
with
it's
us.
actually one of the most secure buildings that I've ever seen as far as its location and where it sits. So other than the residential in the church that has voiced that they would be good to go, I think it's a really great location to have agricultural things going on.
Okay. Mr. Abramson, did you have another comment, or Ms. Stovall?
I'd actually like to clarify 2 things. Before the applicant came up, you made a reference to whether he was an applicant or appellant. This is a variance request, not an appeal. So this is the applicant. And secondly, what Mr. Abrahamson was trying to point out was that the slide before you shows big house Inc. is the name of the church that is to the west, and this is listed as found no issue but didn't sign. That's what he was trying to point out, so.
Okay, noted. Thank you. More questions for our applicant. Board Member Baker.
I really just have one question. We have a criteria we have to look at, and we have specific questions we have to ask in order to grant any variance. And one of the ones that has come up is are you being denied something that other people have been granted? And I feel like I read that you feel that this is happening, but I don't know of any examples that have been given for that. Do you have that example where someone else was given some sort of variance like this?
Where they got a variance on it, similar to what we're asking for?
Correct.
No, ma'am, I do not. I may be leading the pack on that. I don't know. I'm relatively new into this, but learning quickly. And we have some real good advice from a company that's within our reach in Adam. No, I don't have any examples of that. And maybe someone will use me as an example of that.
Thank you.
Being granted a variance.
That's a positive attitude.
That's right, thank you.
All right, so I think I will weigh in now a little bit if I may. So to Board Member Baker's point, I think you seem like a real nice guy. I'm sure you'd run a good business. I'm sure variance would be economically beneficial to you, but I'm afraid we're not allowed to let considerations like that make our decision. We have those 4 criteria, and we kind of need to look at those. So I wanted to give you a little more chance to speak about them. That first criteria is there a special circumstance with regard to your property? Something about it that's different than other properties. The 4th one actually is, I think they should be in a different order than they are. The 4th one is, if there is a special circumstance, did you cause it? And if you did cause it, we're supposed to say, well, you know, it's your own fault. We're also supposed to consider, if we do grant a variance, does it let you do something that your neighbors can't? And let's see, I'm always missing one. Let me jog my memory. Oh, and the other one is, if we were to read the code completely strictly, does that deprive you of some right that that other people do have that are in a similar kind of property? So I guess I just want to give you a chance to speak to those again. We read your letter, and you know I understand the points that you made, but I'm really trying to give you a chance to talk more about those 4 criteria. If things come to mind, what are your thoughts on those criteria?
Well, the special circumstances, difficulty to lease it out to other places. We probably could keep working the way we're working. It is a big building. It's got a big rent. And we like to try to keep it going in that direction. Had I been able to get this lease before, I would have done it already. I'm not big on leasing my own building out to anybody. I think that's probably, I don't know that I caused this. I don't know that I caused the downturn in our business, but the downturn came and we reduced down a little bit. So we were looking to expand out and protect our staff and that type of thing. So I don't know that I caused it. Something caused it, you know. So it is, if you look at the silhouette of the building, it is not visible from the street. It is not visible at all. It is hidden. And one of the things that the people that came and looked at it saw, well, it's secluded. They like that. Very few businesses can be secluded like this and operate very well. So, no, I don't know that I'm the cause of it. I do think it's a special circumstances, hardship, if you will, because I'm going to be sitting there with 12,000 square feet of empty space that I would love to put back to be productive, not only for my staff and other employees, but also be productive in terms of positive for the community too. I do think this is a positive business. I don't look at it as anything else other than that. I really do. The third one?
So there's special circumstance. Did you cause it? Would we be granting you a privilege nobody else gets? And also, would we be denying you a privilege that everyone else already has?
Well, I don't know that you would be granting me something special. I don't think too many buildings exist like mine does. So I think the special circumstance should be taken into consideration. And if I got it right, would you be denying me? From my standpoint, of course you would. You'd be preventing me from putting a business that I think is going to be part of the future and preventing me from going forward with it. I know I've had some flack, negative connotations on this. I don't believe they're valid at all. I believe that we're, with the infrastructure that we're going to be able to do in terms of adding to the building, putting more security on, having enough, generating enough income to continue to build up and make the business more viable, and as an added point to that surrounding community, the building should be worth much more money. That was one of the questions that came up at our meeting. You asked me, do I think that we would denigrate their building? No, I don't. I think that in fact we would be a positive for it now. So,
Okay.
did I get that clear enough for you?
I think you've done well for us. And I appreciate your trying to work through the system. I know it can be a little muddy and there's a lot to learn.
It's a system. I can tell you.
So thank you for your patience.
Well, thank you for your help, and I hope that you can see your way to making this exception.
Okay, any final questions? Board Member Collins.
I don't have a question, but I do want to reiterate, because of something you just said. You know, whether we believe the business, there's something wrong with the business or not, we don't make a decision on that. You know, like David, the chairman person said, we have those 4 criteria to go by. Even if I personally don't understand why there's a restriction of this business from the church, there's a restriction for a pharmaceutical company to produce prescription drugs near a worship facility. It doesn't make any difference. The code was there, it was approved by the city council, and so we look at the ordinance that was approved, and then do you meet the criteria, regardless of our personal opinion.
I understand.
Okay.
I just hope we can get past that.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. So now we've got some time for some public comment. Folks, before we get into this, I would say, first of all, we're going to give you 3 minutes to speak if you wish to speak. We've got some lights that'll give you a little cue, and if it gets to red, I might turn a little New Jersey and say, hey, wrap it up, please. Please keep in mind that we've heard a lot already. You can be brief and kind of highlight your points. If someone else has made your point, you can say, I agree with that. Let's be wise with each other's time. Okay, so first I have Michael Johnson. Do you wish to speak? Oh, sorry, that's you.
In order to be able to speak initially, so if
That's
we have 3,
right.
then you don't have anybody.
You're all set. Okay, thank
Same
you.
with Jerry Johnson and same with Adam.
I've got Jerry Johnson here. I've got Adam Carr. That's you, right? Okay. Boy, you guys all filled these out. Jennifer Corey.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Corey. My address is 10220 South 51st Street in Phoenix, in Albuquerque area. I am here. I am a private practicing planner. I represent the property owner to the north, and I've represented him on his other zoning matters he had. I became involved with the project because he called me initially and said he had some questions about it. He's going to speak as well, but I'd like to kind of address a couple issues pertaining to the ordinance, and he'll speak a little bit more about the impact directly on his property. I have the overhead projector. I'll zoom down here. The map you have in front of you, there you go. Since the city adopted the medical marijuana requirements for cultivations and dispensaries, they've come back and amended the ordinance 2 times. So the map you have in front of me is from the most recent time when they were looking at modifying the standards. It was in December of last year. This is a city-produced document, and in this document here, it showed the existing standards, and the gray part shows all the dots of a property that would be eligible to be operating both either as a cultivation or a dispensary. So the last time around, the city council decided not to make any modifications to the ordinance as it pertained to cultivation. In other words, they said the standards work. They work really well, and we're not going to change them. So as you can see from here, this dot right there, that's the church. And then you can see that the entire complex back here, that can operate as a cultivation facility. So they've recognized an opportunity for medical marijuana for cultivation. Go ahead, and you can see there's lots of properties that would meet the criteria, the separation requirements. So his condition is not unique. There's lots of places, if you recognize the opportunity, find a property that meets the requirements. I would say that if you want to go and you feel like the separation requirements that the city's put in effect don't work for you, the property avenue is actually to go back and get a text amendment, change the requirements. But as far as the fact of we're kind of secluded back here, those aren't really hardships. He's there, he wants to operate this business because he recognizes an opportunity. That's an economic hardship. One of the things they mentioned in the presentation a few minutes ago is the economic issues. He's not able to go and lease the property, he has poor visibility. We operate the property directly to the north, the 6th Street Commerce Center. So here's the subject property, and then there's our property, a big U-shaped building. Just like their property, we're not bordering on University, we're not on McClintock. We're kind of tucked behind with very little visibility. And one of the things we find is we're 100% leased there. We don't have any problems going and finding tenants for it. The fact is we're constantly turning people away. So if he's got a leasing problem, give us a call and we'll be glad to give our leasing agent name and hopefully be able to do that.
Corey, can you give us your final thoughts, please?
Absolutely. The final thing I want to point out is these residential area, that residential area down there is less than 500 feet. There's approximately 40 units. So we're talking a separation requirement to a lot of homes, not just one, and then the church as well. I spoke with both the church with Pastor Jeff as recently as last Sunday, and then also DNS Imports that's right next door. In their notes, they'd indicated that they didn't sign their petition. They were unaware of this hearing coming up, and they had some reservation on it as well. So if you have any questions, I'm able to answer more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Corey. Questions for Jennifer Corey? Let me start with Vice Chair Frazee, please.
Thank you for your time. So just to confirm or verify looking at this, so we have 6th Street Commerce Park. Your main entrance then is through that cul-de-sac that comes off to the very north of it?
Absolutely.
And then there's going to the east from the top of your building. That's not an access point, correct?
No, the owner, he will actually speak a little bit more about how the property lays out. But we are the closest building to it. In fact, their building is right on the property line that we share. And you'll be able to see some of his drawings, how close they are. So
Thank you.
we're the most impacted.
Board Member Dare, please.
She answered my question. You answered my question that you represent a property owner that butts up to their property.
Absolutely.
Okay, and
arguably the most impacted by this.
okay, and you represent them. Okay, and but do you represent any other properties in that area?
No, I have not been retained by anyone else, but when they expressed their concerns, I went around and talked to the adjacent property owners, in particular the church and the management company for the multifamily to the south. In fact, in your packet, there's actually a letter from the multifamily project to the south of opposition as well. So they have concerns about this as well.
And your property that you represent, they object to the variance, is that correct?
Yes, and in the package, there's both an opposition, and we've went through great efforts to go and explain our concerns. And we also have a petition from all of our tenants within the building as well who had.
What was their main objection, may I ask?
Security, location, access to that property, the close proximity, smell, the precedence that this could set. If you approve this, are you opening the door to other uses? So, and again, the property owner, he can speak more about that as well for you.
Okay, other questions for Ms. Corey? Thank you, Ms. Corey.
Thank you.
All right, Dominic Magnoni? Sorry if I got your last name wrong. You can correct me if you wish.
Hi, how are you? My name is Dominic Mignoni. I'm the property owner with my business partner, Todd Smith, who's with me behind me, of the 6th Street Commerce Center. We own and operate that building as an engineering firm. We work in public safety, specifically the electronics for public safety. That's the business that we are. Along with operating our engineering firm there that we've been there for 18 years, we have about, I think, 18 tenants that are in that building. Leasing is absolutely no problem. We were talking about taxes and such coming in for this type of property. We collect about $42,000 a month in taxes, and there's significant sales tax, renter's tax, and such that goes along with that, as well as the property taxes and such that we pay on there. So there is a tax benefit that's coming from the other businesses as well, not just the business that's in question here. Our tenants believe that this would negatively impact their, this drawing is showing the yellow is us and the pink is them. This drawing shows how, according to the document that's been submitted to the board, the access and the direction and such we go, everything kind of stays on the south side. This little yellow line at the top is the top of our building. We think our building is about 66 feet from this building. We saw some pictures. Most of the pictures that were submitted are not showing the north side of their building, which is the south entrance of us. This drawing shows the, I brought copies of these. This building shows the back of their building, which you can see is about 2.5, 3 feet from, I believe, where the property line is. You can see these cars and trucks and such that are backing up to this side. This Constantina wired fenced area would be where they're showing coming in from the south going north, and if they had the security guards and such that you were to have, would actually have to be posted in our side of our parking lot because of the proximity of the building. You can't get all the way around this building that they would like to put this in from the thing. Here's another view of the building going the other way. Oops. Going the other way, and as you can see, I mean, they would have to be, the security would have to be actually posted in our area here. We'd like to point out this door on this building right here. The hinges are all located on the outside of the building. There's a deadlock, a locked door here and here. You could pop the pins out of all three of these doors. We've been looking at this for 20 years, thinking this was a very unusual door, and this could pop up. I'm not saying this isn't something to be fixed. I'm just trying to point out that we're not sure if a lot of considerations and such have been made for the north side of the building. This is a view standing inside one of our warehouses, just showing that distance, which we think is about 66 feet from our area going out. And a final picture that just kind of, gives you a proximity of the area. We believe there'd be a security issue from our side of the building. We think that 8-inch block wall could be knocked over quite easily if you wanted to come in. If I were going to break into the building, I think this would probably be a wiser direction to come from. And if you notice with some of these cars and trucks, you could put a ladder up, and my business partner, Todd, will show you how easily it would be to get through the roof as well. So I'm not saying that these problems couldn't be addressed. I'm just saying that I don't think that they were submitted as part of the consideration for security.
Okay. I was just about to say you need to wrap it up, but it sounded like you were wrapping up. Yeah. Something in tone or the pace. All right. Questions for Mr. Magnoni? Thank you. Oh, okay. Sorry, we do have a question.
I'll just ask a simple question. You knew that this gentleman was trying to move the building into this new project. Have you addressed any of these concerns with him personally or just with the city?
Well, they were very nice to have a neighborhood meeting, and we went into the neighborhood meeting when we were learning what the process was about. and our concerns kind of arose from there. You know, I'm not saying that odor can't be controlled. I'm not saying that it can, but I'm just not sure what the ordinances are on odor. My tenants would be, if there was a problem that couldn't for some reason be controlled, this would significantly impact the tenants in my building, which the majority of them are the ones on this side that would be the closest to the building, and I could easily lose tenants very quickly. I'm most concerned about losing my tenants in the building for what's there, and this is what I'm here to protect.
All right, thank you. All right, so if there's anyone else who wishes to speak besides Todd Smith, please fill out one of these white cards at the back of the room. Mr. Smith.
These are just copies of the photos in the show. Hi, I'm Todd Smith. I'm the other owner of the 6th Street Commerce Center. And I just wanted to show a few more photos of that area that's in the back to kind of clarify how close it is to our building. Switch to the overhead again. Okay, so this is a view from the aerial view. This is the back of our building, and this area right here is the area that's going to be developed. And you can see this distance right here is only about 60 feet. And from a security standpoint, I have a lot of reservations about this. It is tucked away, which to me would be ideal if you were wanting to try to break into the building. There's no way that police can patrol back here unless they're coming into the parking lot in the back of our building. There's a lot of dead-end spots that are hidden from view. You'd also be looking at running the razor wire and the fence all along the back of the building and along the sides of the building. And from our tenant standpoint, I think it would end up making the back of our building look more or less like a prison. They're talking about 24-hour lighting, armed guards, that whole thing. I don't think that that's really conducive to what our tenants want to see when they come around the back of our building. This other view is basically just, this is just looking the other way. Again, this is the building that's in question. This is the area that would be developed, and this is the 6th Street Commerce Center. We purchased the 6th Street Commerce Center about 10 years ago, right at the beginning of the Depression, which was really shrewd timing. But in that time, we've completely repainted the building. We've put a brand new roof on it. We've put almost a 1/4 megawatt of solar power up on the building. The whole front has been re-landscaped. I mean, we're hoping to get this new look, this improved look for that area of Tempe. If you come by the building, we'd love to show it to you. And I think, you know, having the marijuana facility here is going in the opposite direction.
All right, questions for Mr. Smith? Thank you. All right, any last takers on public comment? You get a chance to respond, but seeing no one else, I will close the public comment section, and now if you wish to come and address what you've heard, you're certainly welcome.
Yeah, I just want to address the safety and security issues that he just addressed to. Early on in my presentation, I said we would do everything according to the Tempe Police Department's mandates and have someone come out and secure the building, which means secure doors. The areas in that back wall, I guess you could run through that back wall. I don't think I'd want to do it, but I guess if you had a tractor, you could run through it just as much as the other walls could be run through. It's a little bit disingenuous to try to bring that up to me. That's kind of being a little tacky, if you ask me. They're nice people. They were over my place and did give us some good information. But the back wall is not the issue. The security would be at the doors, at the area where the roll-up doors are. In addition to that, inside our facility will be containers. Because all of this, if you look at the video, all of this is grown inside 20 or 40-foot containers. And those are secured also. So it would be a little bit tough to spend a whole day. And as far as the guard being there, I'm sure if somebody ran through the back wall or even the back door, which we would have security on, we would be able to know that and stop it. Can't prevent anybody from breaking into any building in this town. Nowhere. Somebody can get in somehow. But the prevention of it all and the obstacles you put in their way is what stops them from doing it. We would be committed to doing that and working with their concerns. If they have more concerns, I'd be glad to listen to it and adjust it. That's what we would do if we were able to get our variance.
Okay, any final
Any other
questions?
questions about that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So now, board members, it is time for us to consider the issue at hand. I will remind our board that we have these 4 conditions, which you can find on page 2 of the PDF. They are that there is a special circumstance. It says here, examples include size and shape of the property, topography, location, and surroundings. Also, one of the conditions is that if there is a special circumstance, it cannot be of the applicant's creation. Also, if we grant the variance, or in this case variances, we can't be granting a special privilege. And also, let's see, not grant a special privilege. And also, one of the conditions is a strict reading of the code is actually denying the applicant of a privilege that many other people do have. So, what are your thoughts, board members? Vice Chair Frazee.
Just, I guess, some comments in regards to what we're hearing from all parties, but also has just been directed. When you look at the property, when you look at the photo, I mean, it looks like this would be perfect for what we're trying to do here. The challenge, obviously, is the location of where we're trying to do this. You know, granting the variance, you know, wouldn't the reduction of the spacing allow a special privilege that wasn't allowed to the other cultivation facilities that are in this area that met those requirements? You know, when we look at what the requirements are, 1,320 feet approximately from a church, say we're going to request a variance for that to be 0. Well, the church is there, and the variances, you know, the requirements are there for a specific reason. That's part of the ordinance, and yeah, if the ordinance needs to be changed, that's a process that needs to go through. But I see that the church is there, and then you have the 500 feet from residences. The residences are there. They've always been there. That's part of the requirements that the city's imposed. So, you know, that's kind of the comments that I have in regards to where those spacing comes in play.
Okay. Board Member Collins.
I'd reiterate that as well. I mean, my concern is that reducing the distance from religious worship facilities to 0, and giving that to this applicant, it will give a special privilege to someone else, the next person that requests to be within 0 feet of a facility that's restricted on the ordinance.
Other questions, other comments, I mean. Board Member Adair.
My question is to the city and this church. I've been around a long time, and I'm not really that familiar with that church and that location. I'm pretty familiar with the churches in the town. Is that, and I know I've always been told you can't outzone God, you know, so churches can go anywhere. But I think that there are some restrictions on where churches go also. And I know there are in some other cities that I've involved with, but which I found unusual because I always grew up with saying you can put that church next to a bar and it's okay. But nowadays I'm wondering, what about the city of Tempe and that church? Because I've never seen it, but I guess it's there. But is it properly zoned, that church? Because one of the things on this is that it's near a church and it's near residential areas. Is the church in a proper place? That's what I'm trying to find out.
The property directly to the west of the subject site is zoned GID. Churches are permitted in that zoning district.
All right, thank you. Other comments? Board Member Watson.
Yes. In looking at it, really what I'm saying is that this would be, or granting the variance would be a special circumstance that we're granting to the applicant, that if we reduce the setback from a church to 0, that becomes applicable across all of Tempe. It now becomes universal because we've set the precedent. So I have a concern about that and how that would be applied by other businesses coming into Tempe.
All right, so I will weigh in now, and I will say that I feel very much the same. We've had a number of different applicants come in and say, well, we want to do a dispensary or a cultivation center, and in every case we had to say, well, you're too close to X, Y, and Z, and tell us, you know, about these 4 conditions, and the story's always been the same. The fact that it may be difficult to run the business, I'm afraid we're not able to consider that, and I don't think that's a special circumstance. That's a condition everyone deals with. There are houses and churches close to many, many properties, so I'm afraid I can't say that that's a special circumstance either. I don't think it's of your own doing, but I'm afraid that I feel very much the same as many of our other board members in that we would be granting a special privilege. It would certainly be the first time that that's been granted in the city, and as has been pointed out, there are possible ways of doing this business. I'd have a very hard time seeing my way clear to granting this variance. So those are my thoughts. Anyone else wish to comment before we hear a motion? All right, let's entertain a motion. Board Member Baker.
I motion that we deny the variance request.
Okay.
We have we can't meet any of the rules for a reason to grant a variance, therefore my motion's just point blank clear, we need to deny the variance request.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so motion to deny the application from Board Member Baker and motion second from Board Member Watson. All those in favor? And let me clarify, if you vote yes, if we collectively vote yes and the motion passes, that will have the effect of denying the appeal. Okay, so, okay, clarification, Ms. Stovall.
Denying the variance. This is not an appeal.
I said appeal again, didn't I? It's keeping me on my toes here. Okay, good catch. Denying the variances. All right, so all those in favor by show of hands, please. And those opposed? And the motion passes 6-1 with Board Member Adair in the dissent. And afraid you didn't get your variances tonight. All right. So do we have any announcements or staff business?
Thank you, Chairman Lyon. We need to discuss the potential for an appeal. An appeal must be made within 30 days should the applicant wish to appeal this case, and the appeal would be made to Maricopa County Superior Court.
Okay. If that's not clear, you can talk about that some more. They'll help you on that process. All right. Well, thank you for your patience. You're good sports. Sorry it didn't work out the way you hoped. And ladies and gentlemen, we more business? You have an announcement.
Okay. I want to thank Board Member John Pazauskas for his service to the city. This is his last meeting. Mr. Pazauskas has served 2 terms, 2 3-year terms as a member of the Board of Adjustment, and I want to have that recognized. Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you.